Welcome back. We're discussing the right to die and the gap that often forms between legislation and public opinion. From Seattle in Washington State, we've been joined by Terry Barnett, the president of Compassion and Choices of Washington, a non-profit organization that advocates for better end-of-life care and choices. We'll try to reconnect with him in Seattle. From our studios in London, we have Dr. Peter Saunders, the campaign director of the pressure group Care Not Killing, which is based in the UK. Now, before we get back to our debate, we have the results of our chat room poll where we asked, should assisted deaths be allowed? And in our poll on the live station chat room, 58% of you said yes, it should, while 42% of you said no, it shouldn't. Dr. Saunders, there's a couple of emails here with a similar theme, if I can put these to you. The first one from Chicago in the United States. Penny Stack wrote in saying, there are many people who have no quality of life and are suffering terribly. It is their right to end the suffering. Modern medicine has too often prolonged suffering when it should be providing a cessation of pain. Each of us is in charge of our own life. For too long, government, at the behest of some religions, have usurped our individual right to self-determination. There's no justification for this. And then from Derek Bernard in Jersey in the UK, another email that came in says, if an individual seeks to help commit suicide and society penalizes those who provide that help, then society is usurping the individual's sovereignty. Now, how do you answer those who say that it should be exclusively a person's choice, that there should be no intervention? It's really between a person and their faith, I guess.
Well, rights have to be balanced with responsibilities, and in a democratic society, as I said before, we're not entitled to exercise freedoms that endanger the reasonable freedoms of others. That's why we actually have laws. And in Britain, Parliament has decided that the law should stay as it is after extensively reviewing it, simply for reasons of public safety. And the key question always boils down to, should we change the law for a very small number of determined people? As a doctor who's looked after many, many hundreds, if not thousands, of people who are terminally ill, I can tell you that requests to end one's life are actually very, very rare indeed. And often the real push is coming from those who we call the worried well here, those who've heard horror stories and have reacted to them. But amongst terminally ill patients, very, very few ever want to even discuss the issue, let alone consider it seriously. And those who do consider it, generally their requests for assisted suicide or euthanasia don't persist. Now, the average palliative care doctor who might see in a lifetime 20,000 cases of dying people will tell you that they can count on the fingers of one hand the number who actually go on asking for assisted suicide or euthanasia after they've been properly treated. And so our key priority has to be able to make the very best palliative care, the best terminal care, much more widely accessible to people, and that's what we should be doing. If we end up in the situation, particularly in the middle of an economic crisis, where we're giving patients the offer on the one hand of palliative care and another treatment option of assisted suicide, and those become therapeutic options which are costed by the government and balanced against each other, there's going to be a huge amount of pressure put on people who already perhaps feel themselves to be a financial or emotional burden on others to request to have their lives ended.
Okay, we're talking
just for the good of the state or relatives.
Right, we're talking
about
very
very dangerous indeed.
Sorry, so I was going to say we're talking about quite a range of cases, I guess, here, from those who might be depressed and consider suicide in this case and look for help, and those who perhaps are in a more complicated situation. And Terry Barnett, I wonder what you made of that case of, or make of the case of Eluana Englaro in Italy, who was the woman in a 17-year irreversible coma, who died in didn't die, I apologize, was in a coma from a crash at the age of 21. She just died because they withdrew her nutritional support. She died 3 days after they withdrew the tubes. Now, here you had parties fighting over a person who couldn't have made a choice. It divided the nation. In Italy, it became a major headline story. Does that help or hinder your case?
The right to withdraw or not start life-sustaining treatment has been widely available. As far as I know, it's available in every state in the United States and has been for many years. So to us, it's kind of shocking to see a national sort of crisis of conscience over something that has been well settled in both medical practice and social policy in the United States for many, many years. to us, aid in dying, that is, a physician making means available to a patient for the patient to judge for himself or herself whether to terminate suffering and, along with that, her life. That's what the debate is here. Mm-hmm. You asked me about whether it wouldn't be enough to simply decriminalize aid in dying, and the answer to that is very much no. That's the situation now in Montana, where a statute that inhibited doctors was declared unconstitutional, unlawful by a lower court, and now is waiting to be heard by a higher court. In the meantime, there's sort of a vacuum there. The Washington law, following the Oregon law, details a process for aid in dying to ensure that the patient truly is eligible, is truly expressing the patient's own personal choice, not burdened by the expectations of others, with multiple layers of safeguards that are prescribed in the law. And so that's why it's so important to have more than simply a removal of the cloud of criminality. Rather, we need this very carefully detailed structure of safeguards to be sure that aid in dying is used appropriately, as it has been in Washington, or excuse me, in Oregon. There have been 401 cases now in 10 years or 11 years there, and not one case of alleged abuse, let alone a case of abuse proved.
Right. Dr. Saunders, there's an email that we got from Belgium, if I may put this to you, from Elias Haddad in Brussels, who says, the decision for aided dying should be based on assessment by doctors and hospital trustees. If nothing more can be done to make the patient's end of life bearable, then the decision should be in favour to terminate the patient's life. Now, of course, we've had views backwards and forwards on this during the show. I wonder, how do you regard the position of doctors in all of this? You know, to some degree, I guess, caught in the middle. Are they caught in the middle, or are they active players? Of course, we had the case in the 1990s in America of Dr. Jack Kevorkian, and that caused a huge debate here. The doctors, of course, have a Hippocratic oath, which not everyone takes nowadays, but that stipulates it's against the idea of any kind of assisted dying, and yet there's, I guess, the more moral decision to be made. Where do doctors stand in the middle of all this?
Well, as you say, the Hippocratic Oath forbids actions with the explicit intention of ending a life, and that's been held up by the Declaration of Geneva, the International Code of Medical Ethics, and other declarations subsequently. And again, it's for reasons of public safety, because the doctor can't choose to kill you. He's therefore got to find something else to do. And that's been one of the major driving forces behind the advancement of medicine over the last centuries, and what's led to the very well developed specialty of palliative care now. It's interesting, but all the medical bodies over here are opposed to a change in the law. The British Medical Association, the Royal College of Physicians, the Royal College of Surgeons, all the Royal Colleges here, along with that of nursing as well, and the General Medical Council, believe the law should stay as it is. Now, there are some doctors who would like to see a change in the law, but they are in the minority, and amongst those doctors who are closest to the dying patient, and I'm talking particularly about palliative care physicians, you'll find that over 95% are opposed. And I think that reflects the fact that these are the people who know what to do in terms of relieving symptoms, and so they don't reach for the euthanasia option.
Gentlemen there, Dr. Saunders, thank you very much, and Mr. Barnett, thank you very much for taking our debate on, and we hope to revisit at some point with you. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Thanks for being with us. On the next show, we examine the International Criminal Court's decision to charge Sudan's President Omar al-Bashir. Will it help or hurt the people of Sudan? Franklin Graham, the son of American evangelist Billy Graham, has just met with the Sudanese president and says that arresting him threatens the progress the country has made since the end of its civil war in 2005. Send us your views, but until then, from me and the team, goodbye and see you next time.